Welcome to the Week 6 recording for game design. And you can see that Week 6 goes from September 16th through 20th. If I take a look at this, Week 6, we're into the interface unit, and we're going to cover sections A, section B, section C, so only the first half of the interface unit. So this is a pretty short week, so it'll give you a chance to catch up on older work. So of course, for this week, as always, you're going to watch this recording, which you're doing now. You'll complete the write-up. Then you'll have a features quiz, a types quiz, and platform-specific interfaces quiz. And you, as we always do, are skipping the discussion. So for this week, watching this recording and doing the write-up might take you, just to say, half an hour. Getting prepared for each of these quizzes and completing the quiz might take you another half hour. So this is probably about 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours worth of work this week. So I think you have time to get work from other weeks made up. Please do that. And of course, we're in Week 6. We have Week 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we're getting down to the end pretty quickly. A couple of reminders. Assignment directions. Here are short videos, like this is a 7-minute video, this is 3.5 minutes. Use these videos to help you understand how to do the specific assignments. Makes life so much easier if you watch the recordings I have. That's the reason I create them, is to make it easier for you. Lastly, before we get into Week 6, passing plan. I've created a passing plan for the course. And of course, I'd like all students to get high grades, but I know some of you just want to pass, and some of you have maybe put this class off and you're getting down to crunch time, and you just want to get 595 to pass. So what I've created is a passing plan in the Doc Share area. So I'll go into the Doc Share area. We'll take a quick look at this passing plan. And the way I structure the passing plans is I just go and choose some assignments that you can do, like from the start of the class further along, just to get you to 595 or above, just to make life easier for you. And you see on this passing plan, what I've done is the points possible column, these are a bunch of assignments. Then over here I've taken those assignments and I've given them some values, and all that gets added up right over here. So if you did all of this stuff, as it shows here, that'd be 598. So if you look at some of these, like this write-up, I would expect you to get the full 20 points on the write-ups, the learning plan, full 20 points. Quizzes, maybe you're not going to get full credit. So I don't show full credit on that. So you can see the way the quizzes are, all the write-ups, I expect you should get full credit on all of those. Your first design, it's a 100-point assignment, you might only get 70 on it. The creating character, 100-point assignment, you might only get 70 on it. So as you can see here, this doesn't mean you have to be perfect in all of this work in order to pass the class. But this is just one way that you can do it. You can plan it for yourself to pass the class. And of course, down at the end here, I have the write-ups. You should make sure you get all the write-ups done, even if you don't do the work for the unit. And I would suggest you get all the quizzes done. So even if you don't know anything about the unit, you'll probably end up grabbing a few points from quizzes, right? So when it gets down to crunch time, even if the quiz previews aren't, or actually the quiz previews will be available, but when it gets down to crunch time towards the end, like the last couple of days, and you need more points to pass, do the write-ups and the quizzes. Then you'll know exactly how much more work you need to do. But as I said before, my goal is for all students to get good grades in this class. So, please do this work as required, so you'll get an A or a B. That would be the ideal thing. Okay, Week 6, as I said, we're doing sections A, B, and C, so let's jump right into this. And don't get confused, because when you go down here to the interfaces unit, you'll see here's the Week 6 stuff through A, B, and C, and then the Week 7. Week 7 is going to be covering the D and E sections of this. So interface has 2 units, or 2 weeks for this unit. Okay, the write-ups. Let's look at some of these questions. So what is the interface of a game? What are the 3 main areas to keep in mind in developing a game interface? Why is accessibility important in game mechanics? What are 2 ways games can address the needs of the auditory disabled? Auditory means people who cannot hear very well. Explain why consistency is important. So let's keep those things in mind. So here we are, we're going to look at interface. And an interface is, it's a vital component of the games. And we're also in this unit, we're going to create our first multimedia fusion game. That'll be down towards the end in week 7. But for this unit, you're going to describe accessibility and understandability, define types of interfaces, distinguish, comprehend various types of game platforms, know and distinguish between popular genres in game interface. And this is all numbers 1 through 4 here. These are all sections A, B, and C. Now, week 7, you'll look at ambiance through sounds and develop some game sounds through a process called Foley. So all the work for this whole unit, of course, always go to the grade book to see exactly what assignments you need to do and how many points they're worth. And this has a little warm-up. So it has you, I doubt many of you are doing this, but describe changes that have enhanced gaming. Use your imagination to describe changes you'd like to see in gaming. I mean, one thing I'd like to see in gaming would it be cool if you had holographic games to where your room was a game and you use your hands and you touch different things within your room in a hologram. You could play the game. That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it? That'd be true virtual reality, where you are actually in the game. All right, section A. So an interface serves as the link between the user and the game mechanics. So the interface is what connects you to the game, allows you to use the game effectively. So that's the first class connect write-up question. So that's what the interface is. And the 3 things to always think about with interface is accessibility, meaning can people access it and use the game effectively? Understandability, so is the interface easy to figure out, easy to understand? And then consistency, does it remain the same or constant so that players do not get confused? So those are the 3 things one needs to think about when you think about the interface for a game. Now in this section, in section A, we're going to look at accessibility and understandability in game interfaces, look at consistency and the guidelines of consistency in gaming interfaces. So accessibility. Any computer application needs to be accessible by nearly any user. So game mechanics, we talk about developing games, is the interface, usable interface is essential, because you want players to actively participate in the game, right? So accessibility means the way in which the interface is developed in order to suit the needs of people with physical disabilities. And this is called Section 508, which is accessibility standards for disabled people by the federal government. Now, games are not required to meet the needs of disabled people, but look at this. 180 million people around the world have visual impairment. 40 to 50 million are totally blind. And of course, there are probably even more than that who have auditory impairment. So it wouldn't be nice that those people, they're part of the gaming market too, right? So game companies try to think about some of these disabilities and build some of the accessibility into their games. So in helping visually or audibly impaired. So visually impaired players are helped by the game's voiceovers. So the voice, the sounds that come from a game can help people who are visually, and the text can have precise instructions. So even though people are visually impaired, they can increase the size of the text so they can see the instructions better. Auditory disabilities, a couple ways those are addressed. You could have subtitles in the cut scenes, so people who cannot hear very well, they can read the subtitles. Also, they can rely more on the visual elements to help the player. So those are the 2 ways auditory disabled people can be helped in the games. Subtitles in the cut scenes, and rely more on visual elements to help the players. And the game developers need to keep lots of things in mind, because they want to make their games accessible to all types of users. Now there's motor and speech difficulties too, right? Motor would be people that have a hard time controlling their hands or their bodily motions. So you can see that you can use different input devices, mice, keyboards, joysticks, and those can help some people who have navigation issues, motor type issues. And sometimes people with those types of issues have difficulty pointing and clicking on the interface, so the interface might be adjusted for them. And certainly a joystick can be a lot easier for some of those types of people. Speech limitations in gaming. There are some people that have that, but it's not so much an impairment for as many people as hearing and visual and things like that. So speech impairment, they haven't been a huge setback in games, but some games like this Navy SEALs game, it requires voice communications. So it limits the playability for people who have speech impairments, unfortunately. Cognitive process limitations. This would be people who maybe think a little bit slower than others. So their cognitive processes, their thought processes are not as fast. So for some of those people, the whole essence of gaming, because they can't keep up with it mentally, they would just lose the whole feeling of the game. So what game players do is they, instead of having complicated menu systems, they make simple structures and simple design and simple narration that can help people who have cognitive disabilities. Online multiplayer games allow users to communicate with instant message or chat. So that can help. Of course, that wouldn't help people who have dyslexia or attention deficit disorders and things like that who can get distracted. So games, they can't meet everyone's needs, but many games sure try to. Understandability. Any seemingly complex gameplay should be understandable and broken down into simpler subplots. That way most players are going to enjoy playing the game. So game has to be understandable or it won't be successful. So any interface should be easily understood, easy to use, and this talks about Wii and how they're making their games much more easily understood. So here's a little features activity, so go ahead and go through that, see what you know. Consistency. This is one of the Class Connect write-up questions. To be consistent, this talks about like a jazz festival. If you're listening to music, and if it gets interrupted, then that bothers you. So same with games. You don't want to have gamers be interrupted, do you? Because the gamer, as they get involved in the game, the interactivity, they get engrossed in the game, and it feels like they're right in the game. So even the slight shudder can destroy the player's immersion. So that's one issue with consistency, is you want to make sure that the player stays immersed in the game. So that's one reason consistency is important. You want to make sure that the player stays immersed in the game. And the other thing, let me go back to the Class Connect write-up question and see what it says about consistency. So explain why consistency is important. And that's actually the reason, is that you want to make sure that the player stays immersed in the game. Therefore, the game needs to be consistent so they don't get taken away from it. Like down here, it talks about how sometimes some games, they give you a message, hey, you need to save the game. Well, that interrupts with the game, right? So some games are starting to add in auto save features so it does not interrupt the game. So we looked at all of this. Any great game interface needs to have consistency, shortcuts, feedback, defined tasks, and all that. So all these factors help to make the game more accessible to people with disabilities. Then there's the features quiz. Of course, here are all the quiz previews. I put them all in the same documents. There's the features quiz, and the other quizzes are down below. So that was section A. So now we're jumping into section B. And the write-up questions for section B. Let's go over these. List the 4 types of interfaces, explain manual interface and visual interface. So section B. So now we're going to talk about specific types of interfaces. So we already learned what an interface is, right? It's the way that you interact with the game and how the game keeps you involved. So it starts talking about, imagine if you were with a stranger in a foreign land and you're not familiar with their language. This could be a tricky proposition, as you don't have much idea of what's being said or what's being done and things like that. So obviously that wouldn't sound like much fun. Well, this is where interface of games come into play. So the interface provides the interpretation between the game and the player. And interfaces are the most important elements of game mechanics. So we're going to look at the different types of interfaces. So there are 4 main types of interfaces. And of course, interfaces vary according to the genre of the game and the types of players they're expecting to have. But the 4 types of interfaces, there's manual, visual, platform specific, and genre specific. So those are the 4 types of interfaces. Now we're going to take a look at the different types. Now here is an overview of interfaces. You can also go down here for the copy of the script, or you can listen to that overview. So this goes through and it talks about these 4 types of interfaces. So of course there's manual interface, closely integrated into the game's hardware. So this interface, you're going to use the keyboard, the mouse, the joystick, or something similar to that. Oftentimes it's going to be using the WASD or the arrow keys to move around. So manual interface would be manipulating with your hands. And it talks about how manual interface is used in different types of games. Then there's visual interface. So this is one that has lots of on-screen elements. And there are 2 types of visual interface, active and passive. So you can read down here and learn more about visual interfaces. So I'll scroll back up. And that also talks a little bit about platform-specific and genre-specific interfaces. So you learn a little bit about different interfaces there. And here's a little quiz on interfaces, so do that. And then finally the types quiz, so that's going to be right over here, the types quiz, and the quiz previews right up above here. All right, now section C. So we're just about finished with this week, so hang in there. So the write-up for section C. 5 different types of gaming platforms. Remember, platforms are the device on which it's played. Explain how character creation is used in gaming, and give an example. It's important. Make sure you give a good example of this. Let's go to section C. So section C, we're going to talk about different platforms, platform-specific interfaces. So this talks about Charlie Chaplin way back in the silent era of movies, and they used subtitles to convey the storyline. What was gone in the movies. You'd read the subtitle, and then you'd watch the actor play out the role on the screen. And of course, that was then the talkie era came in, so then sound was put into movies. But in this case, we were talking about platforms and movies. There was a silent platform movie, and then the talkie platform. Well, if we look at games, there are essentially 5 ways games are played. There's still the old arcade games. There are, like pinball games, there are computer games, so PC type games, console games, like your Xbox and those types of things, handhelds, and then online games, which are played through a computer or through some of these other devices, but it is done online, so it's a little bit different. So those are the 5 types of platforms used today. So we're going to look at various types of platforms and comprehend the design of platform-specific interfaces. And that means interfaces that are made specifically for certain platforms. So arcade games use very simple visual interface, right? Because the games are relying mostly on maximizing the amount of coins inserted in the console. So they want people to be able to play quickly. So that's how the type of interface that arcade games have. Computer games rely on heads-up display with systems of menus where you click a mouse or click something on the keyboard, right? Consoles have visual interfaces. So they're similar to computer in many ways. You have different commands and menu systems and things like that. But consoles have much more detail in their interfaces. Then finally, handhelds. Handhelds, of course, have much smaller screen, so their interfaces need to be designed for those handheld devices. So it's really important. So if you're playing a game on a handheld device and you play the same game on a console or a PC, your menus may end up different. And you probably have a lot more pop-up menus in handheld games. And finally, online games, like the massive multiplayer games, become much more popular. Most online games, they have the same interface as the game, if it's the same game that you'd be playing in a console or via a PC. So there's really not too much of a change involved in those, except with the online games you have communications between players, right? So you can have chat windows, just voices. You can talk like instant message or just live chat or even discussion boards. The score, that's part of the interface. So some game interfaces provide you a lot of information and on how to play the game and things like that, but they give you the scores, the lives, the power, the characters, all types of things. So that's all part of the interface. And keeping track of all-time scores is important because a lot of people like to beat old scores. Now some platform-specific interfaces, and we're talking about some of the items that we just mentioned a second ago. So lives and powers. So lives and powers, sometimes the lives are accompanied by the score. So you get the lives you have left and the score that you have. And oftentimes those can be seen right on the screen and at the bottom or on one of the edges, but sometimes you have to pull them up to see where you are. Related to this obviously is the health status, and that's also considered the power that you have. Maps. Some games they might have a map in the top right-hand corner. Then you can watch the map as you actually play the game. In some games, you might have to toggle to go see the map, or hit the letter M to pull up the map, hit the letter M to close the map. So, those are different parts of the interface. More about platform-specific, the characters in the start screen. Now this talks about character creation. Character creation interfaces are becoming more popular, mostly because of the improvement in graphics. So like in real-life sports games, you choose the character that you want. And then that character comes with whatever skills and abilities that character has. So if I was playing like Madden 25 or whatever the latest version is, then I would choose to be a certain player and I would have that player's skills. But I can also, in games, lots of games, create my own players. Like my son plays a basketball game and he gives himself, as a basketball player, gives himself particular skills, like shooting skills, jumping skills, things like that. So there are lots of ways that you can create different attributes. And this really becomes vital in role-playing games, because the way you create yourself, that determines how well you're going to do in the game and how you're going to succeed, right? So character creation, this is all about character creation. And that question, the Class Connect write-up question, was explain how character creation is used in gaming and describe an example. So character creation is used in gaming in which you can give certain attributes and qualities to your character. But I want you to give an example of a game that allows you to do that and discuss it a little bit. But character creation allows you to give attributes to your character so that you can play the game. Then finally, the start screen, of course, is important to the interface. It used to just be introductory screens that would have steps that you would follow. But start screens now, they just give you so much information, and they give you cues onto the feel for the game and how to get started in the game. Here's a game design quiz, platform-specific interfaces quiz, so go ahead and do that, see how well you do. Interface discussion, of course, we're skipping these. So on this one, you were just to discuss about game interfaces. We're going to pass on that. Then finally the quiz, so there's the platform-specific quiz right here. So of course you'll do that platform-specific quiz, and the quiz preview is right up here. So that's all for week 2. So week 2 just has the write-up, or not week 2, I'm sorry, week 6. So week 6 just has the write-up, and then it has the quizzes, so no game work to do. But in week 7, you will start designing your own game. So what you might want to do, you can go ahead and look at sections D and E. Down here in the interfaces unit, you can start to look at D and E, and you'll go in and you can download the Multimedia Fusion program if you want to. So that's all I have for you. I look forward to your work coming in. And again, this is a short week, so please get some old work submitted if you're behind. Thanks, everyone. Bye.